Hello, you're welcome to the only show that brings you happenings from the diplomatic community in Ghana, Africa, and the rest of the world. My name is Harriet Nartey. Today's episode will uncover all the activities that have taken place in the diplomatic space, and of course, with a particular focus to the EU-Ghana political dialogue. Stick and stay with us. I will be back right after this break. Now to our first story, let's talk about the EU-Ghana political dialogue which took place at the Foreign Affairs Ministry, which saw the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana co-chairing alongside the EU Ambassador to Ghana to discuss very, very important issues pertaining to the relations between the EU and the Republic of Ghana. It was a very long meeting, and I understand the issues that came up were immigration, security, food insecurity, of course, press freedom regarding Ghana, and of course, other important issues. After the event, we had an exclusive interview with the EU ambassador to Ghana to really understand what went on during this meeting. Here's the interview.
It is a great pleasure to welcome you, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, and to the 2023 session of the Ghana European Union Political Dialogue. Since our last meeting in 2021, the world has undergone a lot of turbulence, and we are facing an unprecedented level of global instability with the old challenges yet to be sufficiently addressed. While new challenges are creating more global tensions, that is affecting us all. This has truly tested our international system, and those of us who believe in the rule of law and multilateralism must defend it. This requires, among other, strong partnership, cooperation, and dialogue among like-minded countries and institutions. I am happy in that regard that despite the challenges, the partnership between Ghana and the European Union, our largest development partner, continue to grow stronger and stronger. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, like in the previous years, this year's Ghana-EU dialogue is being held within the framework of the cooperation between Ghana and the European Union that drive deep impetus from the first Lomé Convention of 1975, signed between the then European Economic Community and the Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific group of states. Ghana has since, together with the European Union, maintained fruitful economic and political cooperation, which has deepened over the years, the signing of successive partnership agreements. Ladies and gentlemen, I am elated that the dialogue is being held at this time of the year, as today's conclusions will set the tone for our activities this year, during which we will work together to resolve pending issues. Over the period, our discussions have focused on issues such as economic diplomacy, partnership, democracy, good governance, climate change, and sustainability, economic transformation, regional security, and multilateralism, among others. As strategic partners, there are areas where we must work together more strategically in order to achieve the desired objectives. Today's dialogue, therefore, offers the opportunity to assess the progress made on the implementation of the outcome of the previous year's dialogue, spell out our prospective and joint visions for the year, while exploring other avenues for cooperation in the thematic areas outlined in the agenda for this dialogue. I am optimistic that the outcome of this discussion today contribute to further strengthening the relations between Ghana and the EU and assist us to address the challenges we face for the benefit of our people.
It is my singular honor to welcome you to the 2023 session of the Ghana European Union Political Dialogue and to chair this year's session once again. This meeting is an important milestone in our collective efforts to drive forward economic cooperation and coordinate actions to address our challenges. Permit me to commend all stakeholders and the European Union delegation for working tirelessly towards the organization of this year's event, given the exigencies of the time. Distinguished guests, the global economy has in recent times witnessed deepening polarization and increased skepticism about the benefits of multilateralism. At the same time, trade friction, economic slowdown, and constrained fiscal and financial spaces have heightened economic and geopolitical challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic, which also exposed our vulnerabilities to crisis and the ongoing geopolitical challenges, have further highlighted the risks we face due to the disruptions in trade, supply chains, and connectivity. Coupled with these shocks is the ongoing climate crisis. Ghana and the EU have been presented with yet another opportunity today to discuss matters of mutual interest with a focus on the following thematic areas: economic partnership, national and regional security, good governance and human rights, sustainability and green growth, and partnership in a challenging global context. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to seize this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation and gratitude to the EU for allocating 10 million euro earmarked to support Ghana's food security, which will definitely augment government's agenda of planting for food and jobs. Over the years, Ghana and the EU have enjoyed an enduring cooperation, beginning in 1975 with the signing of the first financial protocol, the Lomé I Convention, between the EU, African, Caribbean, and Pacific member states. It bears mentioning, however, that the mutually fruitful interactions between Ghana and the EU, underpinned by historical and cultural antecedents, have expanded to include new areas of focus, provided impetus for holding the annual political dialogues. As we proceed with today's session, I look forward to assessing the progress made on the outcomes of the previous year's dialogue, whilst exploring new avenues for cooperation in the outlined thematic areas for the day. I am confident that the outcome of today's discussions would further strengthen the existing relations between Ghana and the EU as we work collectively towards addressing bilateral and multilateral challenges for the benefit of our peoples.
As we all know, Ghana is an essential partner for the European Union and its member states in the region, on the continent, and worldwide. This is evident on several levels. It is clear from the ideas Ghana brings to the table on the much-needed modernization of the international governance architecture. In this context, I can assure you, Mr. Vice President, that the speech by the President of the Republic, President Nana Akufo-Addo, in Munich last month, received very positive echoes in Brussels. It is clear from Ghana's priorities and engagement at the UN Security Council, and it is clear from the unwavering support Ghana, while holding ECOWAS chair, has been given over the past years to work towards the return of democracy, strengthening the rule of law, and promoting a rules-based multilateral order, including here in the region. Let me pause on the latter, the rules-based multilateral order. A bit over a year ago, the world woke up in horror and shock as we witnessed the military invasion of a sovereign country, Ukraine, by another, Russia, and Ghana has time and again condemned this unprovoked and unjustified aggression in the UN Security Council and in the UN General Assembly, and together with an overwhelming majority in the international community, reminded the principle of the UN Charter. This is only more evident that, and even though we understand we come from different perspectives, that Ghana and the EU's principles are fully aligned, including at international level. Beyond Ukraine, which is a major priority for Europe, as you know, rest assured that we remain committed to our engagement with our African partners. The whole of Africa, several crises in Central Africa, elections in Nigeria, jihadi groups in Mozambique are very high in our agenda, as well as Sahel, as you know, and its potential spillover effects in the Gulf of Guinea. The European Union's heavy engagement in Ukraine has not made us blind to other priorities, such as the global rising price of food, and as you have mentioned, Mr. Vice President, the EU has responded and mobilized significantly to support African partners to strengthen food security and other economic consequences of this war. We will go through this in details later on. We also continue to roll out our jointly agreed development programming in Ghana with 203 million euros grant for the next 4 years. Not €1, and I insist, not €1 has been diverted from what we have committed a bit more than 1 year ago to Ghana. And we will see during our discussion as well how the European Union Global Gateway will further strengthen these funds, addressing specific thematic areas such as sustainability, connectivity, and digitalization. Over the years, the good relationship between Ghana and the European Union and its member states has steadily intensified, as you have mentioned, Mr. Vice President. Today's agenda reflects the richness, the width and the breadth of this cooperation. Each of these topics will guide us towards a stronger and more resilient future together. On the short term, where our common interests focus on strengthening Ghana's economy. On the medium term, where we keep engaged on the stability of the country and the region, including by ensuring that strong democratic structures remain robust. And on the long term, where we work hand in hand for this century's predominant challenge, climate change and environmental protection. Our ambition, first, to accompany Ghana in overcoming the current crisis. Second, to support Ghana to become the regional hub it longs to be. And finally, for the country's leaders, from politicians, diplomats, entrepreneurs, and youth, to continue to be an engaged and indispensable voice on the international scene. This is no small endeavor, and to succeed in this task, we must be transparent, frank, and willing to compromise. We must be able to treat hot topics without fear or prejudice, Yes, these issues can be complex, but that is no reason not to address them. And ultimately, the resolution will prove to be mutually beneficial. I'm convinced that our mutual appreciation will allow us to discuss them openly and frankly in order to further strengthen our partnership.
Your Excellency, it's good to have you on Diplomatic Affairs. Again.
You told me I've got a permanent invitation, I've got a subscription, I've got a platinum status, so you're welcome anytime.
Thank you so much. Now, let's go to, last week we met at the Foreign Affairs Ministry.
Yeah.
There was a meeting between the European Union and the Republic of Ghana, which saw the presence of the Vice President and, of course, other important dignitaries gracing the event. For the sake of our audiences, I would want you to tell us this year what happened and how long this has been going on and how that actually translates into our lives.
So, last week, on the 8th of March, which was a very busy day because in the morning the President of the Republic gave his State of the Nation address. We all had to celebrate as well the International Women's Day. And thirdly, as you mentioned, we organized this European Union Ghana political dialogue, which is co-hosted and co-chaired by the Vice President, Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, and myself, in the presence, so the viewer understand what it looks like. It's a large conference room. We are co-chairing, and on the Ghanaian side, led by the Vice President, you have a number of ministers who are in charge of the topics on which we are cooperating between the EU and Ghana. And on our side, I'm accompanied by all the ambassadors of the 9 European member states which are resident in Ghana. So it's quite a large setting. We are something like 50, 60 in the room, because on top of the ministers, you have as well the head of departments, the technical people who are in charge of some of the topics that we are dealing together. I think an important element which has to be shared with your viewers, the dialogue is not a one-day conversation. The dialogue is permanent, I mean, on a daily basis, but we wanted that every year we have some solemn meeting where we take stock of all the topics ongoing of common interest and to identify points for follow-up. And this is very important because, once again, the dialogue does not stop the 8th of March. There was a number of topics to be carried out at technical level to close them, to improve them, whatever. I will go deeper in the detail. So the dialogue is permanent. Every year we want to mark a specific day to illustrate that the dialogue is all-encompassing. It's not a dialogue about money, it's not a dialogue about sanctions, it's a political dialogue which encompasses the whole partnership between the European Union and Ghana, which is very wide and which has been recognized by the Ghanaian side as the #1 partnership that we're having. So I think it's a key element.
Right. Unfortunately, the media was not privy to the details of this particular dialogue. We were given a background of the dialogue, what was to be expected in your dialogue, and some of the issues that were discussed. I want to find out, I'm curious, and I'm sure my counterparts, media counterparts, were also curious, what might have actually led to you staying in that dialogue for so many hours?
Yeah, we've been there for more than 4 hours.
Right.
Because it illustrates the richness of the topics. We are not a one-topic partner. So we had, I would sum up, 4 big areas. One area related to economics, trade, business climate. Another area related to international, regional, bilateral security. Another area related to governance and human rights. And the fourth area related to everything we are doing together with Ghana in the field of sustainability. And of course, you will have some cross-cutting discussion on the breadth of our bilateral cooperation program as well. So this is the reason why it's so long, because it's rich. Because with Ghana and the European Union, we are cooperating, we are discussing, we are working together, we are supporting common positions, common interests in so many areas. Economic, for example. We are in a so-called economic partnership agreement between the European Union and Ghana, which ensures that Ghana can have a quota-free, duty-free access to the European market. This is key. And it's a way as well to protect some of the industrial or commercial interests of Ghana, where there is a nascent industry. You don't want the European product to flood the country and to impede on that. So we wanted to take stock on that. This is a key area. And as the African free trade area is picking up, this European Partnership Agreement, for example, is a key building block leading to the implementation of the AFCFTA. And the European Union, as you know, is heavily supporting the implementation of the AFCFTA. We are putting 74 million euros, both in Addis Ababa, the seat of the African Union, and in Ghana, the seat of the Secretariat
74 million euros.
Grant. So this is to support the implementation, because there is a lot of expertise involved in terms of, it's very technical, rules of origin, blah, 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 blah. But the European Union is one of it's the largest integrated economic bloc. And this has taken decades to build. So we have some lessons to share. Not to say you have to do like us, but we have lessons to share on this field. We have failed, and maybe this is not the best way to conduct it. On this field, we have succeeded, and this is the best way to do it. I told you, a Polish driver with a Lithuanian truck can travel from Poland to Portugal with no control whatsoever, because this is what we call an internal market. And this is, I hope, one day the stage to which the integration of AFCFTA will be able to be implemented. So we are sharing notes. So this was one of the topic. Another topic was business climate. And, this is a dialogue. Some of the European companies have voiced already sometimes their frustration on the regulatory framework. They find it somewhat a bit more difficult to operate than elsewhere. And as a follow-up to that discussion, which took place the 8th of March, yesterday, the 13th of March, we had a public event, a high-level conference on business climate, attended by the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, where they had a follow-up and figures, testimony from business people from Singapore, South Africa, some European countries, even Ghanaian. So, as I said, the dialogue is identifying issues to be conducted at another level when the topic has to be followed up. So this was topic number one, and you can imagine already why it's long, because Ghana is making its point, we are responding, we are making our point, Ghana is responding, so this is what makes a dialogue. So, and we wanted to go beyond statement one after the other. There was a real discussion. And I have to say I was pretty happy and proud to see this discussion evolving. On the second block, security,
right.
There was a discussion.
Right, security is on the list.
So, for example, there was a discussion on why are we in that situation in the region? And of course, no one has got a magic recipe. No one has got a magic recipe. This is very unfortunate. There is an history to terrorism activity in the Sahel. It goes back 20 years ago. It's not new. It's 20 years ago that there is terrorist activities in the Sahel. It's just worsened. And why has it worsened? There are many reasons to that. And the European Union, for example, has been supporting heavily the Sahelian countries over the years to address basic needs when it comes to development, but to prevent as well the degradation of the situation. Didn't work out. Why? There are many reasons. Sometimes as well, local responsibilities have to be identified, but these are the type of dialogue, and we've been discussing as well with the minister in charge, who was the Minister of National Security, on how best the European Union can help Ghana and the neighboring countries to prevent potential spillover. Remember, last year, the government, with the help of the European Union, has organized this first ever summit of the Accra Initiative. You remember?
Yes.
So this is a way for us to support the Ghanaian agenda, to share the priorities, to identify the needs, and to gather international support. And we, on our side as well, we are already implementing a series of projects in the field of security, already, as we speak, and we are trying to expand our footprint and to adjust to the new situation, to support best the needs and the strategy of Ghana. So this is what we are doing. We are working with Ghana to support the sound implementation of their own strategy. So basically this was one of the topics. Maritime security has been addressed as well, yes, because this is a key area of joint concern. Fortunately, lately the occurrences of attacks at sea decreased a bit, but there is a permanent presence of European Union member states vessels at sea. As we speak, there is a Spanish vessel which is patrolling, which called to Accra last week. But we have 5 nations who are permanently ensuring a security presence at sea. Spain, Italy, France, Denmark, and Portugal. So this is what we call coordinated maritime presence. So we don't see them, right, but they are working. We are working with the Ghanaian government and the other countries of the region, because it's not only Ghana, in order to prevent and limit and I hope eradicate piracy in this region of the world, which is one of the most exposed region to piracy. So, these are, I'm taking 5 minutes to describe a conversation which took at least 1 hour, because we need to go to the details, we need to compare notes, we need to react to the other side's submission or reaction. There are questions asked, but how do you do that? Where is the stage of implementation of that topic, so and so. So I think this is what makes it a dialogue.
And that's very interesting. I think my viewers now can relate to what took place during the dialogue between the European Union and the Republic of Ghana. May I revisit the issue of security? For instance, up in the north, I'm talking about Mali, Burkina Faso. Now, regarding Mali, I learned that some EU security forces, which is I think France, and then was it Denmark, were pushed out by the military regime in Mali. And the perception is that the European Union has neglected or abandoned, these countries with focus to Mali to fight, security on their own or all by themselves. What is the actual narrative out there?
But your answer is in your question. These forces have been pushed out, so no one is neglecting Mali whatsoever. The European Union and the member states, number one by far, donor, security provider of Mali and neighboring countries. Mm-hmm. We have been there for years. We have provided 8 billion euros on top of all the security engagement. And as you say, at some point, because the regime which took over by force in 2020 felt so, they say, okay, you are not anymore welcome. So I don't agree with the idea that someone, especially the EU, has neglected. So if someone has neglected Mali or Burkina Faso or any other side, then it's not the EU. Do you see the sequencing? We are there since the early 2000s. We have increased our support because we have been asked to by the regime of Mr. Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. And then when he was toppled by the military junta, they say, okay, we don't require your service anymore. And in that case, you have to vacate. So I think it's very important to put the things in the right perspective. Meanwhile, we are still supporting the Mali for everything else: development, culture, water, sanitation, education, infrastructure, you name it, because we have not been asked to vacate. You understand? So I think this idea of neglect is very, very wrong. I don't know where it comes from, but I think it's something we have to halt as a narrative.
Right. Now that that particular incident has been well clarified.
It's not an incident.
Well,
it's just
it's
clarification and redress of the fact. It's fact.
Right.
It's not an idea. It's not a narrative. It's fact.
That's what happened. I believe you will go back to the table and be able to resolve this and many other issues that might have come up regarding partnership between the European Union and the North, these countries.
But as you know, I'm not the ambassador of the European Union.
I get it. But I'm talking about the EU as a bloc.
Yes.
Is very much interested in what happens there because security or lack of security in any area is likely to trickle down to other areas as well. And so you are very much interested in maintaining security when it comes to the other side. Now, let's talk about, there has been a particular figure regarding money, even though this is not really the real focus of our conversation. I would want us to use this opportunity to also clarify the amount involved, because out of that dialogue, what we gathered was that a specific amount was given to Ghana I think, for climate and I think other things, but you will be the best person to actually tell us how much and what it is meant for.
I think you are referring to the media coverage of the following day to the political dialogue, and it has been mentioned rightly that the European Union has given 10 million euros to the government of Ghana to react to the increasing price of food worldwide due to the aggression of Ukraine by Russia.
So that's food security.
Yes, this is food security. But this took place already last year.
Last year.
But the reason why I've mentioned that, it was to illustrate the fact that even though Ukraine is a key priority for Europe for obvious geographical reasons, Africa has not been neglected, or the partnership with Africa has not taken a back seat, because the European Union has given to African countries 1.6 billion euros only for food security and only to address this specific issue. And out of that amount, 10 million euros have been allocated to Ghana.
Okay.
So that does not mean that our partnership with Ghana amounts to 10 million euros.
Right.
But I think it was an illustration that despite the current international context, Ghana and EU partnership is key. Not €1 allocated to Ghana has been diverted to something else and to Ukraine. So we have agreed with 203 million euro grant 1 year ago, and not €1 has been diverted. On the contrary, Ghana is getting additional support. Additional support with that 10 million euro, precisely because there is an international context which calls for a response and for European solidarity, number one. But there are a number of other additional support that Ghana received in the last months and years on, I would say, on health and vaccines, 82 million euros, on support to the Development Bank of Ghana. You remember last year?
Right.
Last year, the Development Bank of Ghana has been launched with, I think, a total amount of 6 or 7 million US dollars, and part of that comes from us. We have allocated 170 million US dollars to the development of Ghana. Why so? Because development of Ghana is the one which can support better access to finance to SMEs and to entrepreneurs. And these are the backbone of economic growth, job creation. And job creation and economic growth is one of the key joint undertaking of the European Union and Ghana, because it's an obvious priority.
Interesting. What other issue came up during that dialogue? We've talked about security, maritime security, the economic relations between the European Union and Ghana. What are some of the other issues as we wrap up?
There was another interesting block there, again with a vivid dialogue. It was on human rights and governance.
Democracy.
Democracy. Next week we will receive here in Ghana what we call an electoral follow-up mission. It's a follow-up mission to the electoral observation mission which took place in 2020 for the latest elections. They have set a number of recommendations, and this follow-up mission is aimed at following up on the implementation and the integration of those recommendations in the current policy. So, for example, this is a building block. So this has been discussed. Ghana has undergone a very important process in the UN system, which is called Universal Periodic Review on Human Rights. It means that all the member states of the United Nations, Africa, Asia, Latin America, have made a number of recommendations on human rights when it comes to Ghana. And this, the countries are taking turns. So it's not against Ghana, but it was the turn of Ghana this time around. So this has been discussed as well, because our member states have been part of the process. Like, as I said, the rest of the members of the United Nations, and this has been discussed when it comes to respect for human rights, fight against discrimination, death penalty, well-known topics. And I have to say, the discussion was very substantive and not divisive at all. There was no tension, no division, nothing. It was a sound discussion on, so what's next? How do you see that? How do you manage that? What are your plans to handle that? How can we support you? Because we are not here to say you have to do this 1, 2, 3, 4. Our role is to say we have these common challenges. How can we cooperate better to address them better? So I think this is the essence of the European Union partnership with Ghana. Contrary to others, we are not here to say 1, 2, 3, 4, you have to do that. We agree on the shared priorities, and we agree on the best way to address it. It's not for us to tell Ghana to say, you should do that on security. Our question is, how do you want to address it? And number 2, how can we best support you? And this is true for any other topic.
Interesting. Now, before I go, the issue of press freedom was also on the table.
Of course.
Ghana has dropped with regard to the global index, on the table. So we want to find out what happened in that area. Is that an issue of concern? Obviously, once it came up, it must be an issue of concern.
Of course, and as I said, it has been discussed, and the response as well has been put forward by the Ghanaian government, the way they intend to follow up, etc., etc. So I think, like other topics, this has been put on the table as well. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
for
Harriet.
your time, Your Excellency. And I will see you again very soon. Thank you very much for your time. And the next episode or the next part of the show will highlight all the events that took place in the diplomatic community. You can stay with us. My name is Harriet Nartey. I'll be back right after this break. Right away from that, let's take you to the Pedriase Lodge, where the President of the Republic of Ghana, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, hosted the diplomatic ball. President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, has held the 2022 New Year's greetings for members of the diplomatic Corps at the Pedriase Lodge in Ebri on February 28th. The event, held annually, is to strengthen the bond of friendship and promote goodwill between Ghana and its development partners. The President, in his welcome address, assured members of the diplomatic corps of Ghana's readiness to continue to promote the cordial and fruitful relations that exist between Ghana and their respective countries for the mutual benefit of all.
The ministry has worked assiduously with friendly countries in various fields of endeavor to strengthen our bilateral relations, regional ties, and cooperation with other countries for positive economic outcomes in order to attain our collective prosperity as envisaged by the Sustainable Development Goals and the African Union Agenda 2063. In line with our vowed principle of multilateralism, Ghana has leveraged its diplomatic leadership and experience as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council to champion international peace and security, as well as the interrelated issues of terrorism, climate change, and maritime piracy. Ghana's commitment to the principles of democracy and good governance, which are prerequisites for socio-economic development, was amply demonstrated at the regional level together with member states of the Economic Community of West African States and other international bodies, which advocated for international law and democratic governance. I wish to use this opportunity to reiterate the call on the international community to support regional initiatives to complement the fight against growing threats to peace and security, including terrorism, violent extremist attacks, maritime destabilization, and unconstitutional changes of government. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the search for lasting solutions to the current global economic challenges affecting most countries, including Ghana, the promotion of international trade and investment has been identified as a key factor to accelerate economic development and for the alleviation of poverty.
As part of efforts to reset the economy and restore stability, government has also come up with a 7-point agenda aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability and accelerating economic transformation, as articulated in the post-COVID-19 program for economic growth. The program contains a set of goals which seek to achieve the following. 1, aggressively mobilize domestic revenue. 2, streamline and rationalize expenditures. 3, boost local productive capacity. 4, promote and diversify exports. 5, protect the poor and vulnerable. 6, expand digital and climate responsive physical infrastructure. And 7, implement structural and public sector reforms. We know there will be palpable reactions to the fiscal adjustments we intend to make in the coming years to sustain our stability, recovery, and eventual transformation. But as we have shown in other circumstances, we shall turn this crisis into an opportunity to resolve not just the short-term urgent problems, but the long-term structural problems that hamper the development of our economy. We remain mindful of our responsibility to contribute to the economic and political integration of our region and continent as a whole. Evidently, the potential for African countries to succeed together lies largely in inter-African trade. In the light of this is the successful operationalization of the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is located in Ghana. Following the coming into force of the AFCFTA on 1st January 2021, African countries have been racing in various directions to make the agreement a reality. It is worth noting that on Monday, 29th August 2022, government launched the AFCFTA Hub, a digital platform to facilitate trade on the continent. We want to consolidate the successes so far and with a sense of urgency, develop the signature solutions needed to deepen intra-African trade and spur impact investments needed to bring prosperity to the continent and its peoples. Excellencies, it is sad to note that insecurity on the continent, especially in West Africa, rising insurgency, terrorism, and violent extremism remains an issue of great concern. As part of efforts to enhance human security, whilst promoting democracy and good governance for sustainable development on the continent, Ghana hosted the African Union Reflection Forum on unconstitutional changes of government in Africa from 14th to 18th March 2022. This initiative contributed a lot to the success of the extraordinary summit of the AU held on 28th May 2022 in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, to consider possible measures to address the resurgence of military and unconstitutional changes of government on the continent. Ghana is committed to the collective continental effort to ensure peace and stability on the continent. As far as the interests of Africa are concerned, we seek collectively a peaceful and secure Africa based on the progressive ideals of fostering democracy, good governance, respect for human rights, social justice, and the rule of law. And it is for that we remain firm in our support of the sanctions regime imposed by our regional body, ECOWAS, with the backing of the AU, against the military governments that have issued out of the unconstitutional changes of government in Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso. We equally aspire for an Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, shared values and ethics, whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of African peoples, especially its women and youth, and caring for its children. As we work together to deepen multilateralism around the globe, it is my hope that we would also build the right bridges and forge enduring partnerships with the rest of the world.
Imani Wadel, Ambassador of Kingdom of Morocco.
Now, our next story, Cuba and Ghana have a very good relationship, especially in the field of medical diplomacy or healthcare diplomacy. Over 500 residents in Oyarefa have benefited from a free medical outreach program organized by the Member of Parliament for the Medina constituency, Francis Javier Sosu, in partnership with the Embassy of Cuba. The medical team, led by the Cuban ambassador to Ghana, Her Excellency Annette Chaugacia, had about 7 Cuban medical doctors who screened and prescribed medications to residents for free.
It is an outreach that is meant to reach out to the most vulnerable within the community. As a member of parliament, I recognize that health is one of the most critical part of my constituents. And so from time to time, we organize free Medicare for the constituents. I think that almost every quarter we do this, and I'm happy that this time around we are partnering with the Cuban embassy, having some Cuban medical doctors here to assist the process. Let me also put on record that this is about the biggest we've ever done. And so, yeah, it's great to have this again.
The numbers are very encouraging.
Absolutely, because I think this was more advertised, more so because we have more support from the Cuban embassy. Until recently, we have our own in-house medical doctors who volunteer. We used to have 15 medical doctors, but sometimes you don't have all of them coming together. And we have nurses who volunteer, and then we have pharmacists who sometimes assist us with drugs when we are running the outreach for the constituents. But this time around, we have many more doctors. In fact, we have over, I think, 12 medical doctors from, sponsored as a sponsorship from the Cuban, embassy. And for us, that is quite unique. And we are happy that we can partner with the diplomatic mission to bring health to our constituents.
From your perspective, I would want to find out why you decided to partner for this initiative, which is very commendable.
Actually, this is the third time that we come to Medina. The first one was with the Cuban train. Johnny Amposa, he has a lab there in front of the main street of Medina. The second was in a church here in Medina, and this is the third, as I told you. It is a very good initiative, not because of us. Actually, I prefer to say this is about Ghana, not about Cuba. As we learned from a huge man, Fidel Castro, I'm wearing this t-shirt today, we must do more things for others, and then we will be better. And we will get in return more love. We are trying to give the things that we have, that is love from our doctors, from our persons here, from our Cuban here, just to help the Ghanaian people. This is the only way that we find to help. And that's why Cuba goes to many countries every year, and we are helping right now in Turkey, the new name, and we are helping in some other countries, because we think when we go with love, they will give us love. We don't need more.
South Africa High Commission commemorates Armed Forces Day in Accra. A defense advisor at the South Africa High Commission, Accra, Colonel Andrew Arnoldus, said the South African National Defense Forces was involved in international peacekeeping missions in the continent, more so in the DRC under the UN Stabilization Mission and Mozambique under the AU mission.
As we acknowledge the noble contribution of South African men and women in uniform, we also remember this with respect and celebrate on this day our fallen heroes and heroines. In this celebratory but solemn atmosphere, we as well acknowledge the South African National Defence Force in its contribution of global stability and peace efforts. The South African National Defence Force is involved in international peacekeeping missions on the continent, more so in the Democratic Republic of Congo under the United Nations Stabilization Mission, and in Mozambique under the African Union Mission. Currently, there are about 1,200 South African troops deployed in the Democratic Republic of Congo as part of the Force Intervention Brigade, together with Tanzania and Malawi as counterparts. We furthermore have about 1,300 troops deployed in Mozambique, I beg your pardon, together with Botswana and Zimbabwe in the Southern African Development Community Mission. We continue to soldier on from where our fallen heroes and heroines left off. Take up the noble mandate and defend and safeguard the sovereignty of the Republic of South Africa. In the faithful discharge of this call of duty, some fall on the way, but as a country, we refuse to forget them. To our fallen heroes and heroines, may their departed souls forever be an inspiration to all men and women in uniform all over the world with dignity and pride. We will remember them, lest we forget. With those few words, kindly allow me to once again welcome you and entreat you all to enjoy this event. I thank you. I will now quickly request His Excellency, the Deputy High Commissioner of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Dalamba, to address you.
On this day, we celebrate our men and women in uniform and at the same time commemorate those who laid their lives in defense of the Republic of South Africa and its people. In 2012, the then President of the Republic of South Africa and the Commander-in-Chief of the South African National Defence Force proclaimed that 21st February will be observed and commemorated as Armed Forces Day. It is to be a day on which the South African population honors men and women of the South African National Defence Force by affirming its support and gratitude to them for upholding the Constitution of the Republic and defending the territorial integrity of the Republic of South Africa by protecting its people.
Right, all too soon, this is where time will permit us as we brought you events happening in the diplomatic community right here in Accra. It's been very great spending some time with you. My name is Harriet Nartey, and I look forward to seeing you same time next week.